So gas stoves are canceled.
Yeah.
As of January 9th.
That's when I became privy to it. I was under the impression that they were going to ban gas stoves. This is not the case. Apparently some congressman suggested that we might want to phase the gas stoves out.
Yeah.
And this was a incendiary proposition for those of the center-right persuasion. Myself included, though not for any ideological reasons. Did you see that map going around? It shocked me, actually, of like America and like the prevalence of gas stoves across states. And they're mainly used in California, Nevada, New York, and like Chicago. Actually,
where you're sitting, I read in Time Magazine, is ground zero for electrical appliance usage. No gas stoves in the state of Florida. Something like 92% of Florida households apparently use electrical appliances more than any state, which is funny because Ron DeSantis was like leading the charge against the anti-gas stove discourse.
He posted that like horrible riff on the "Don't Tread on Me" flag with like a drawing of a stove on it.
Don't gaslight me. I was on Twitter last night being like, guys, this really gives the term gaslighting a new meaning.
Which everyone was loving.
Yeah.
I'm team gas stove just because it's all I've ever known, having spent my entire life in Nevada, California, or New York, basically. I had to use an induction oven when I was in France, induction stove, and it was distressing. I didn't understand how it was making things hot. It didn't feel like cooking, and I want to, I'm a primal person who wants to cook my food, which I barely even do, but...
It's like trying to use a washer dryer in Berlin.
You mean a washer?
Or whatever. It's like,
no,
waschen, weissen, nicht schützen, and you're just like, like cowering under the floorboards. Not memories of my ancestors.
Someone in Berlin told me, because I was like, how come all these apartments have washers and not dryers? And they were like, dryers are bourgeois.
Oh, yeah. But so are induction ovens. Like, induction ovens are what, like, pretentious, rich, like, Brooklynite people have, right? Like, people who are really into cooking with, like, Japanese knives and, like, copper kitchenware.
Well, I saw Matt Brunig making the opposite point, which is that gas stoves are actually bourgeois because they are the preference of, like, foodies. I think in, like, any commercial kitchen, people are using gas stoves because it's obviously...
That's default?
I think it's just the better way to, like, control heat and prepare food, from what I understand. And then I saw someone being like, what about woks? You can't use a wok on an induction stove. And he said you can buy an attachment that's like $200 for your induction stove to use the wok. But then I also saw right-wing people being like, gas stoves are low class, only white trash use them.
Well,
like, I didn't know where to align myself politically on the issue because I don't want to do a new thing. I just want to do things the way I've always done them. Like a real conservative.
I swear to God, I had no intention of mentioning Steve Saylor this episode, but he wrote a very good, brief blog post about how this is one of those libtard psyops, but this one went wrong. They've pulled so many things over on us. But this one, they timed it incorrectly. They weren't persuasive enough. I mean, this is really just like a replay of the plastic straws discourse.
Well, the plastic straws was a success.
It was a success.
They took them.
Or like the shopping bags discourse. But it really is like very brazen and audacious how like libs will declare some like random yet essential thing to be like bad for the environment out of nowhere, and everyone has to go along with it. Like it was always the case. People were speculating that eliminating or at least cutting down on all means of cooking that aren't electric will allow the government to impose blackouts and like punish bad states, aka red states, because it's harder to get off the grid if you're using electric. I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched and over-involved, but as usual...
Do you know the difference between induction and electric?
No, induction is the one that doesn't get hot, right? Like you can touch a finger to it.
What kind of black magic are these stoves?
Sorcery.
Using?
it gets dicey because, like, a big chunk of gas stove users are, of course, like, minorities and poors, at least in New York, for example, so you can't really sound off about how, like, gas stoves are, quote, bourgeois.
You can if you're Matt Brunig. Yeah. It's, I mean, what about the woks? You know, how am I supposed to make stir fry for me and all my Asian friends?
Gosh, how often do you make stir fry?
In my wok?
The other thing that I've been seeing from lib blue checks is, like, the predictable, like, blaming poor rural whites. Like, what do they know about gas stoves? The only thing they're cooking is crystal meth. Like, that kind of discourse. But the workaround that they've come up with now is that gas stoves cause childhood asthma.
Yeah, but the data is very flimsy from what I understand.
There's a study. Okay, whatever causes childhood asthma and childhood allergies is not gas stoves. It's like literally like microplastics and xenoestrogens.
They really expect us to believe that, like, the methane being emitted by gas stoves is causing children to be asthmatic and is also detrimental to the environment.
Just think about the children.
I'm not buying it. Plus, I had a gas leak in my apartment and I liked it, and that's my right as an American.
Did it help you dissociate?
Yeah, it did. And then I got to call, you know, the gas company, and then I got to go to the bodeguito, get a little chopped cheese on the sidewalk while they fixed it. It was nice. I like that. I don't want that to go away.
I have no choice but to accept the gas stove. It's like constant. A standard in my life.
You have a gas stove,
yeah,
right?
Of course. I live in a fucking Chinese tenement.
Same, yeah.
What choice do I have? It's really funny how this whole discourse has shaken out, because I read an article, like I said, on Time magazine called How Gas Stoves Became the Latest Right-Wing Cause in the Culture War. And it's always like Democrats blaming Republicans for the culture war that they started.
Yeah.
That's what Democrats do best. They psyop culture wars into the public consciousness and then blame Republicans for it. And what Republicans do best is, like, take the bait every time.
The bait. Yeah. And paint themselves as, like, conspiratorial nut jobs.
A mutual of mine put it really well that, like, America's children are, like, in permanent divorce bartering mode. It really is like a bitter custody battle between, like, Democrats and Republicans. Like, the Democrats, like, want to cut your baby's dick off and give it the jab and make it gay, and the Republicans are like, just let a tranny step to my kid, I'll drag that queen. For once in my lifetime, as Jack, the perfume national, said to me, I would like to see children not used as political pawns in their sick and twisted bipartisan games. Just leave the kids out. No more childhood asthma discourse, please.
We don't need... The kids are fine.
But I think the Democrats really edge out the Republicans in terms of being deplorable and despicable, even though I'm not a fan of either, because they really can't stop at the endless culture war. They have to really kick it up a notch and go an extra mile and make everything just, like, really dysfunctional and inconvenient. Like, they have to take away our plastic straws, like, our shopping bags, our gas stoves.
I've had it. I've had it with climate change.
I know. My suspicion is that all of their climate change campaigns and initiatives actually make the climate change problem way worse.
Is there a climate change problem?
Well, that's a good question. That's the number one question. Like, but presuming there is, let's say there is. Like, that's the default. There's a climate change problem.
What if there's a convenient truth?
And
it's like climate change is a lie.
Yeah.
We can just keep
the Occam's razor explanation.
Irregardless, it's
irregardless.
Regardless.
No. I just love when people say irregardless.
Am I saying it wrong?
No, I say it too. I think it's cute. I don't mean it in a...
What does irregardless mean? It means regardless.
Yeah.
Like infamous also means famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, irregardless means regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Sorry, I didn't mean to go down this. It's just a very New Jersey term. Anyway, what were you saying?
Just, that the idea that it is up to us as, like, individual consumers and the choices that we make to use or not use plastic straws or gas stoves or plastic bags or whatever, that this actually is impacting the environment in any meaningful way. That is, like, the biggest
hilarious
psyop.
Yeah, they're, like, deputizing individuals to, like, partake in their own austerity. They're asking you to, like, not only do you have to accept austerity, but you have to also implement it yourself.
You have to
in your own home. You can't have plastic straws anymore, so we all have to use these like flimsy, mealy paper straws that disintegrate in your cup of coffee anyway, so you have to, get like 3 or 4 of them. Which is clearly not any better for the environment, by the way. You can't have shopping bags anymore, so you end up collecting those like reusable totes that are also clearly bad for the environment because they're not biodegradable and they like clog up landfills, guaranteed. Or you have to pay 5 to 10 cents for like a normal paper shopping bag with handles.
Meanwhile, the surgical masks are just piling up in some landfill somewhere and no one gives a shit.
They just keep manufacturing them. Like China's main export is like surgical masks.
And little plastic COVID masks.
You can't have gas stoves, but you're supposed to be able to afford an induction stove with a wok attachment.
Isn't this what the yellow jacket protests were about in France?
I think it was about diesel.
It was about cars.
Yeah, it was about cars.
Yeah.
But they were asking people to like cut down on their diesel usage, and a lot of people in the countryside and truckers depended on it. The people like leading the charge, it's kind of like an after the fact rationalization for them anyway, because they don't cook at home and they just get Uber Eats. They like hire some Guatemalan or Senegalese guy to deliver them food cooked by a Mexican or Chinese guy on one of those electric scooters,
On probably a gas stove.
On a gas stove, yeah.
At a restaurant. I mean, my ass is not cooking. I ultimately don't really have a dog in the fight. I just like to have the open flame in my house. I like the sense of danger. Plus, if I need to light a cigarette.
Right. It's sexy to light a cigarette on a gas stove. This is making me really want a cigarette. It's you always want to know that you have the option to like Sylvia Plath yourself if life gets really cold and unbearable. Can't do that on an induction stove.
They're really trying to take away the main suicide pools of women with these electric cars and stoves.
We can't have anything nice.
It fucking sucks. But that is shocking about Florida and DeSantis. He's just so ready. Yeah, he's ready to like lead the charge on any issue regardless of the way that it affects Floridians.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but it is nice down here.
Yeah, well, that's why he's so popular, because he happened to have the luck of becoming a statesman in a great state.
Yeah.
But I liked what he said. I'm not really the biggest fan of DeSantis, as I've said many times on the pod, but he did point out that it was the Democrats who launched these culture wars and then blame the Republicans, which I appreciate that he pushed back on the premise of the argument instead of like debating the terms and then implicitly accepting them, which is what Republicans do every single time, which is why they're such cucks and just like
losers.
Through and through losers. This is why I'm not a Republican, contrary to popular belief.
I don't have a coherent ideology at all.
No.